David, you have a question?
Mr. Ballard, so it just happened, I was looking at a map, it happens to be, it's close to that wood rat area up there. That checkerboard, is that not, wouldn't that be a lot easier for the Forest Service to maintain and manage that up there if that was all one contiguous piece?
Yes, I'm not even opposed to the acquisition of the Upper Loxaw or the Upper St. Joe, but not as the exchanges were designed. When the proposal shifted from the Palouse District to Idaho County, I said, yeah, I'd go for that. But then when you find out that people they're concerned about it, and they're opposed to it down there as I was up here. And plus, one thing I haven't mentioned, the Forest Service in its draft environmental impact statement never made a case for acquisition of the land, regardless of what the price that would be paid for. They couldn't display a problem with the land that would be solved by acquisition of that land. It's been managed, the private land has been managed by initially, most recently was Plum Creek Timber Company, and then they sold the land to
The WPT.
Timber. They logged it pretty much all of it. It's all roaded. Presumably the property lines were run.
So wouldn't that be better if that land was back in Forest Service hands to be able to take care of that then?
But the Forest Service, there were no problems displayed in the draft environmental impact statement. No watershed, no fisheries problems displayed resulting from that logging. So what's the problem to be solved? Again, I'm not opposed to it. It is easier, and that's why we were consolidating the Palouse District as much as we could, because it made it easier. But we dealt with the problems that we had in the scattered parcels by acquiring rights of way and running property lines. And
But if I'm understanding this, there was no discussion about acquiring the cutover timber on the private land. There was no discussion about acquiring the private land, just outright. Is that fair?
there's no problem with acquiring, I don't know.
The deal was, it's the exchange, it was a trade or nothing.
Right,
Is
the
that
price that would be paid
okay?
to exchange. There's a lot of support for purchasing the land through Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Gotcha.
Monies, and there's opposition to that too. There's people that feel that that land was given to the railroads years ago to build the railroads, so they didn't build a railroad through there, so they should give it back to the public. It's my understanding that those lands that they didn't build railroads through was to provide timber for ties and so forth, for lands that didn't have timber on it, so to the plains and the prairies, where you didn't have timber for railroad ties. This was kind of in lieu of, it was to supply ties and timbers for bridges
Okay,
and
thanks.
so forth. So they got that land legally at the time, and it's theirs. Whether we agree with that.
I've got two folks I remember. You want to arm wrestle too?
I think Gary had his hand
Okay.
first already.
I just want to clarify a couple of things. Yes, there is support for acquisition of their purchase through, as through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. But I'd also point out the history of that, the railroads did not live up with the covenant with Congress. So Congress could, if it wanted to, take back that land, but it hasn't done that. So it's, while by all rights,
One second. Railroad doesn't own that anymore, Western Pacific does. So you're suggesting Congress should go take it from?
no, I'm not saying Congress, maybe they could, I don't know if they would do that. All I'm saying is that the railroads did live up to the covenants that were established when those railroad land grants were made. And that, a lot of this is documented in Railroads and Improvements. It's a book that was published about 15 or 20 years ago. There's some interesting history there. All I'm saying is that never lived up to it. And that's why people are looking at the Land and Water Conservation Fund for purchase. I mean, Congress maybe could, I don't know what powers Congress does or doesn't have.
That sounds like a legal question.
Yeah, and I'm not an attorney, so.
Me either, thanks. Yes, sir.
My name is Harvey Meeks. I grew up in the Moscow, Troy area. I have here a paper I put together. It's entitled Outdoor Recreation Benefits in Idaho, Washington, Montana, and the Nation. Outdoor recreation on mostly public land. Would you like a copy of it?
Did you email us that?
I don't know if I did or not. I'll give it to you now, you can tell.
I got something
Now,
similar.
why they would want to trade in public land in these states is the amount of benefits is beyond.
I did get that.
Yeah,
You emailed it.
yeah, we saw it.
Okay,
Thank
But
you.
that's great.
Now, how we got into this, I can give you a couple of points. In 2010, the GAO investigated 23 Forest Service land trades. It's a published paper, 2010. And in that, at the end, they found only one that was justified. Okay, according to the regulations, a land trade cannot take place unless it's proven legitimate and in the interest of the people. Now, that is the reason that we got into this legislative solution, is because the Forest Service couldn't show that this land was in the best interest of the people to trade. Now, how did we get into it with the senators? I can tell you personally. I was in a county hearing, Peck, Idaho, and Senator Crapo came to the meeting. There's only 3 or 4 of us there. So I asked him this question. I said, did you go to the Forest Service to initiate this trade, this land trade, or did they come to you? No, we did not go. The Forest Service came to my office, implying it was the forest supervisor at the time that started the land trade. I'm not sure that's legal or not. But anyway, that's how this got started, because they could not justify it, because so many people opposed it. And we're still in it. But anyway, there's a lot of these little tangles and negative stuff that can happen. And I might add, I've worked with a lot of projects around the world in a lot of countries, including Russia, Ukraine, communist countries, dictatorship. I've frankly never seen an operation like this before. I've been on this for 7 years. And the estimate is that the people that's worked on this project for 7 years, if you put it in money terms, have spent over $1 million opposing it in time. So anyway, it's really a weird situation, and if it was investigated, they would find, I'm sure, all kinds of, more than what I just gave you.
Okay.
Marilyn Beckett again. I just wanted to second, or third, follow up on John and Happy and those people that said that they felt that the Forest Service should finish their final environmental impact statement. I think that would really help, it would make people feel like they still could have some trust in their agency, and show some integrity of the agency, which, we rely on the Forest Service in these communities in Idaho, Latah County especially, is one that relies on Forest Service guidance and employment and all of the economic, others that go along with that. So I think that's really important for those 2 aspects. I think it would also help inform the congressional delegation, since they seem to have taken such a great interest in this project. How do they know what would be appropriate to put in a draft bill if they don't have the final review of the environmental impact statement? So, I think that to have a body like the Latah County Commissioners, or any of the county commissioners in Idaho that are involved when the land sits, be able to say, we really would like to see you resume your process, so that, we can do this. And I think one of the reasons that it's so important is because previous to this project being, the start of this project, the initiation of it, that checkerboard still existed, and there were, you know, minutes for striving, some people may have been interested in it, but, you know, there was never any effort made by the Forest Service or anybody else to try and get conservation funding to regain that land. You know, it was never on the list of sensitive landscapes for the Land and Water Conservation Board. So that makes the environmental analysis documents that have been created that much more important. And without any of this stuff being done, who can say whether it's worth it even to try and buy it, or trade it, or do anything with it at all, you know?
My curiosity is still in place, and this is just gonna require this is total supposition, and I'm not an attorney, so I can do this kind of thing. The Forest Service, which I would assume would be an unbiased, objective kind of a organization, from what I'm hearing, is my suspicion that politics is involved, is that accurate?
Are you asking me? Yes.
I'm not asking anybody or not.
I would say yes.
This is total supposition, but I'm trying to figure out the rationale. Yeah.
I, you know, just within the last day, I was looking at the Clearwater Economic Development Association's website and their report that goes up through 2014, well, actually through 2019. And to see what has happened with Forest Service employment in the state of Idaho, where we have such a large proportion of national forest land, I think is kind of telling. So
What
yes,
does it
I think it's, what's that?
What did it say?
Well, it just shows the numbers of what the decrease in Forest Service employment in all of the counties in Idaho, but Latah County is, you know, has suffered as well from that. Because, you know, lumbering and private timber companies are important to our economic development as well. But, you know, without the foresters and the conservation scientists and all those other people that are employed through the Forest Service, have long-term positions, have benefits, have all of those things that help fuel the economies of our counties. You know, the other side of the equation, it doesn't, there's no balance, you know? And so we need both, but what we're seeing is an imbalance, and maybe that's another thing that the commissioners might want to comment to whichever, you know, level of administration, whether it be, you know, or supervisor, the regional forester, or the chief, maybe all three. You know, the concerns for the land mass in Idaho that's really important to the vitality of the country, the state, and the local inhabitants, and, you know, how we should approach it.
Back again.
Yeah, Kathy Jensen again. In just response, the Forest Service bylaws require that they are to remain neutral. They are not to take sides, according to their bylaws. Also, I did a Freedom of Information request requesting how they could, why they wanted to obtain the upper Latah lands. And under the Freedom of Information, they're required to have a certain amount of criteria, and I believe it's 7 points of criteria. The two that I received back were for restoration, and my thought on that is that doesn't even begin to count because we didn't log it. The public did not log it. So therefore, why should we be held responsible for the thousands of dollars to restore it? So as far as I'm concerned, that's illegitimate reason for acquiring. The other one was aquatic. They said that was their other criteria for acquiring was aquatic, but that was proven to be false also. So, just want to add that in.
Sun's going down.
Oh, the Forest Service didn't have I don't know if you just called on me or not, my thoughts are just,